This is the Real Estate Investing Abundance Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Allen. I just want to take a moment to introduce you to our company, Steed Talker Capital. Steed Talker Capital is a real estate investment firm. If you'd like to learn more about real estate investing, head over to our website, steedtalker.com. And while you're there, take a moment to get your one-page guide to the 10 steps to passive real estate investing. Downloading this PDF will also enroll you in our Enlightened Investor Circle, and by enrolling in the Enlightened Investor Circle, you'll be the first to know about any new investment opportunities that we are getting involved with. Look forward to hearing from you. Enjoy today's show. Hello, enlightened investors. Welcome back to Real Estate Investing Abundance. I'm your host, Dr. Allen. I'm delighted to be back with you again today, and we are going to talk about being seen to get the green. Using his proprietary three-part money partner formula, Dave Dubeau helps his real estate entrepreneur clients to grow their portfolios by raising six figures in a matter of weeks and even seven figures in a matter of months, all by attracting private investors instead of chasing after them. So, Dave, take us into the show and share an experience that helped you to be who you are today.
Dr. Allen, thank you so much. It's an honor to be on your show. Experience that has had a big impact on me, so many of them, but the one that always pops to mind first is a negative one. Do you ever find that those negative ones kind of mold you a little bit? And the one that really molded me a lot was when I was about 21 or 22, and I had graduated from university with a very, very mediocre grades at best, with a basically useless degree in psychology. And I'd been traveling around Mexico and Central America for a couple of years, kind of doing the backpacker thing. And I ended up back home in my little small hometown in northern British Columbia, Canada. And I was working, saving up some money, and I was staying with my father at the time. And I shared with him my big plans on saving up some money and going to Costa Rica and starting my own business. Now, bless his soul, from the perspective I now have in my 50s with kids that are the same age I was back then, I can understand him a lot better now. But basically, my father sat me down, and with his good fatherly advice, he said, "Dave, I think that's a really bad idea." Well, 2020 perspective. Yeah, I can see why I thought that. I know you. I know what your personality is. I've got friends who are entrepreneurs. And quite frankly, I just don't think you've got it in you to make a go of it in business. I think you should really go back to school, get a teaching degree, and get a good, secure government job. Become a teacher. That's what I think you should do. And I tell you what, Dr. Allen, that ticked me off so much. I didn't say it to his face, but inside I was fuming. And I said, screw you. I'm going to prove you wrong. So I actually did go down to Costa Rica. I ended up down there at $1,000 to my name, and being an illegal, it was kind of interesting. I was a Canadian wetback in Central America, kind of the roles reversed, right? So there I was, an illegal alien in a foreign country in a foreign language. And by gosh, I actually did start my own business down there, a language training company, got married, had kids, created a life, and had that business for 10 years. And, bless my father, about 5 years after that initial conversation, when I visited him again, he said, "You know what, Dave, I'm proud of you. I take it back. You have proven me wrong." So that was vindication. But I used that negative motivator to really carry me through a lot of tough times when I would have liked to have thrown in the towel.
Fascinating story, Dave. And yes, it is oftentimes those negative experiences that give us a kick in the butt that we really need to really change the course of our life oftentimes. Well, Dave, let's dive in here to raising money. So how can we be effective? And what strategies do we need to build a strong platform that attracts the investors to us rather than us chasing after them?
Well, Dr. Allen, I'd love for this to be kind of conversational and get your input as well. But what I've definitely seen is, we've all heard this. In order for somebody to invest with you, they need to know you, they need to like you, and they need to trust you with their hard-earned money, right? So we have to have those three factors in play. So one of the things that I always recommend for clients that we work with, helping them with raising capital, private capital, is that they really need to kind of raise their profile in order to raise capital. Now, you don't have to do anything crazy, and I'll share with you several different things that people can do, going from super easy to the little bit more difficult side of things. But it really is important to work on that kind of personal branding, personal image type thing when you're talking about people investing $50, $75, $100,000 or more with you in your real estate deals. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the first thing I always recommend to people is to kind of take a cold, hard look at how you show up physically, right? So what is the first impression people have of you when they see you? So if you're going to a local REIA, real estate investment group, BNI, out and about, whatever it is that you're doing, and you're meeting people, and you're meeting prospective investors, how do you look, right? Do you look the part, or you're a little bit slobby? And years ago, Alan, it was interesting. I was working with a real estate guru up here in Canada, kind of Canada's version of Rich Dad idea, that idea. And we did these events all around the country and had anywhere between 300 and 1,000 people come out to these events. And the guy I was working with, the guru, would always pick two people out of the audience. He'd say, hey, everybody, who here is an active real estate investor? A whole bunch of people would put up their hands. He'd pick two of them. One was sharp dressed, one was slobby dressed. He'd bring them both up on stage, invite them up, and it was an embarrassing experience for a lot of people, but a really good learning one. Mm-hmm. And you say, okay, everybody, just based on this initial first impression, who here would you feel most comfortable having a capital conversation with? And he'd point to the slobby dressed guy, and 2 or 3 hands, sympathy hands, would go up, usually his wife and his buddy that he came with. And that's about it. And then he'd point to the other person that was sharp dressed, and all the hands would go up. It was just the way it is, right? So Is it right? Is it fair? Probably not, but it's human nature. So let's work with it. So again, we aren't all born with Brad Pitt good looks and wit and charm and humor and all that kind of stuff, but you can do the best you can with what you got. So guys, I won't try to give women any advice. I have no idea about that, but guys, you know what? If you're meeting with somebody, talking with them about capital, you don't have to go overboard, but dress at least business casual, right? So I like to throw on a blazer, nice slacks, nice pair of shirts. You don't have to do the whole tie and vest and that kind of stuff, but look sharp. And that's going to do two things. Number one, it's going to get you a little jolt of immediate respect from the other person. Even if it's your Aunt Phyllis, who's known you all your life, it's still going to get that, it's going to be a little bit impressive there. And the second thing is it's going to show the person you're talking with that you respect them as well. So dress the part, look sharp. Does that make sense, Alan? That's something everybody can do very, very quickly.
Absolutely. I mean, it is an easy thing to do, but it's amazing really how easy it is to overlook that. And even myself, I really like to dress down, and I have to remind myself that it makes a difference.
Can I share a little tip, a little trick with you, Alan?
Sure.
Because we do so much stuff on Zoom these days, right? I mean, Zoom is just, so I'm usually dressed down, but when I'm going to do a podcast interview with somebody like yourself, I just grab the blazer I've got right next to me. Yeah. It's on top of a black t-shirt. That's always easy to camouflage pretty much everything. And then as soon as we jump off this podcast, I'm casualed right out. Like I won't stand up and show you the shorts that are there. So you can work with it. It depends on if it's virtual and in person.
Well, I think that's a very good suggestion. And I think I'm going to add that to my podcast and start wearing a blazer. It makes a difference. It really, truly does. And it's easy to, like you say, take it on and put it on, take it off.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to show you what slacks I'm wearing today.
Well, we could maybe compare how pale our legs are or something like that. I don't know. So the second thing I always recommend to people, especially when they're getting started with the whole capital raising side of things, is really figure out a good answer to this question. And the question is, hey, Alan, what do you do? So when you meet somebody at a networking thing or whatever, always the question comes around to, what do you do? Right? What's your profession kind of thing? And most of us, myself included, really suck at this because I'm pretty sure most of your listeners
Yes.
are part-time real estate investors. So they're doing their full-time gig, they're real estate investing on the side or whatever. Or even if they are full-time real estate investors, they don't have a good answer to the question. So, most people, they get answered that. Well, they say, I'm a plumber by day and I dabble in real estate and I do this and and it's just kind of boring and blah. And it doesn't really create any curiosity. So years ago, and I don't know, Alan, if you ever heard about this, but people used to teach, and they probably still do, especially in network marketing, that you need to have a 30-second commercial or an elevator pitch. You remember that?
And they're boring,
People,
yes.
Yeah. And I remember, I thought, okay, well, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So I came up with, when I was doing rent to own deals years ago, I came up with my 30-second elevator pitch or what, something like this. So you be the person asking me, let's pretend we just met. You ask me, what do I do?
Well, Dave, what do you do?
Oh, hey, Alan, thanks very much for asking. Well, I help deserving local families who can't quite qualify for a mortgage today get into the home of their dreams years earlier than they could on their own, while at the same time getting my investor partners and myself an above average return on our money. And how about you? What do you do? Right. So that was my shtick.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as 30-second commercials go, it's okay. Like it's not bad. And that's
not bad.
That's like 10 years since I actually was doing that or even used that. But the problem I have with it, Alan, is it just sounds like a commercial.
Like a commercial.
Like this slick thing that nobody ever says in real life. Real people don't talk that way. So after I did that a number of times and just, talking with non-real estate people, I was just getting a weird vibe. People, it had the opposite reaction. It kind of pushed people away instead of generating the curiosity I was hoping for. And then a friend of mine shared with me what she was doing because she'd been doing the 30-second commercial thing too. She got sick and tired of it. And then it just came to her. The next time somebody said, her name was Julie Broad. She's also a real estate trainer. But she said, somebody said, "Hey, Julie, what do you do for a living?" And she said this. It was beautiful. "I collect houses." What do you mean you collect houses? Like the porcelain houses you put on the wall? What do you, it started the conversation. What do you, like, if you say that to a non-real estate person, they're going to go, what are you talking about? So don't grab Julie's idea necessarily. Don't steal that directly, but come up with your own version of something that's short and snappy and ideally kind of gets the conversation going. And then you can have just a normal conversation because the other person's interest is piqued. Does that make sense, Alan?
Enlightened investors, if you haven't done so already, be sure and click that like button and also click that share so others can take advantage of the content. And finally, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single one of our upcoming episodes. That makes sense and something for me to really, really think about. And I mean, certainly I collect houses wouldn't work for me, but there is something that I do that I'm into, that's about me, that could really be a wonderful statement that would get people to say,
yeah,
well, what do you mean?
Well, tell me more, right? That's what we love it when people say, "Hey, tell me more about what you do." That's perfect.
Instead of going, "Oh, that's a great commercial. Let me tell you about myself."
Yeah. Exactly. Especially at those networking events, right?
Yes.
Now, speaking of networking events, the other mistake I see people making is when they're trying to raise capital is just having really, really crappy business cards. Well, two problems. Number one, not having a business card. Number two, having one that they've made at home and they pulled out the old dot matrix printer from 1988. And it looks like it anyhow, like they printed it up on those little tear tab perforated things, right? That you get at Staples. Right. So you guys don't go cheap with your business cards. In fact, what I always recommend to people, I learned this from a good friend of mine years ago, is go over the top. So I'm showing this to Alan on the video. You can't see this if you're listening to this, but this is business card I've got. It's black matte plastic. It's about the size and texture of a credit card, and it's got gold foil inlay. And these cards, I have to have them specially made in England. Some part of the process is hand done, the gold foil inlay or something like that. And at the end of the day, these cost about $2.50 each. So they aren't cheap. You don't give these out willy-nilly, but when you do give a really good business card, it leaves a lasting impression. And here's the thing, this card or a metallic card or something that really stands out like that, people are going to go, wow, and they're not going to throw it away. It's not going to go in that shoebox full of old crappy business cards. And when they pull it up, they're going to remember who you are. So go a little bit above and beyond with the business cards is another quick tip for people. Another one that's quick and easy, you do have to invest a few bucks in it, is to get some professional photographs taken. I don't mean, selfies. I don't mean your buddy Jim taking pictures of you unless he's a photographer. I mean, go to a professional photographer and get a number of professional full body shots and headshots taken with a clear background so that you can turn those into what are called PNGs with a transparent background. And you can put your images on your website, on your pitch deck presentation, on your materials that you leave behind for people. But do that. It makes a big, big difference. And then update them about every 5 years. Don't be like that realtor that got their picture taken in 1982 and they haven't changed it since, right? We've all seen that, right? Mm-hmm. So get some professional images. It costs you a couple of bucks, probably $100 to $200 to get these pictures taken, but they make a big, big difference, a big impact as well. So any thoughts on that there, Alan? The whole idea of the commercial, the business cards, the professional photographs?
Well, those are excellent suggestions. And all of those are easily implemented, but easy to cut short. Business cards, I mean, it's much easier just to go to a regular business card company and just get the standard business cards.
Like everybody else does, right?
Like everybody else does. And get some photographs that are good, but not necessarily professionally well done. Those are easy to forget about. So good suggestions.
So these are all the easy stuff. Now the stuff that I'm going to share with you is probably going to take people out of their comfort zones, but I tell you what, it really kicks things up to the next level. And the other thing that we really encourage our clients to do and people that are looking to raise capital is to get free exposure using what I call the other OPM. So most people know OPM to be other people's money. The second OPM is other people's media, So that's exactly what I'm doing here today, Alan. I have the honor and the privilege of being interviewed on your show. The fact that I am being interviewed by somebody like yourself automatically elevates my stature to that of an expert in the eyes and ears of your followers, right? People just automatically assume that if somebody is being interviewed, they must know their stuff. So there's all sorts of different places that you can get interviewed on. Real estate podcasts are great, like yours, Alan. I know you do a lot of great interviews. I think I'm number 300 and something. So getting interviewed on Alan's podcast, getting interviewed on my podcast. We're always looking to interview what I call everyday people investing in real estate. Absolutely love interviewing those kind of folks. But there's all sorts of other opportunities as well. You can get interviewed by somebody on a Facebook Live, even if it's their personal page or if they've got a group on Facebook. A lot of people have YouTube channels. You can get interviewed by those folks on their YouTube channels. You can get interviewed by people all over the place, right? I'm not talking mainstream media. I'm talking about online media, and that's something that we can do here. So I got a tip for people if they're looking to get booked on podcasts, and this worked really, really well for me, Alan. In fact, last year I put focus on this, and over the course of I think it was about 18 months, I ended up doing 150 podcast interviews, getting interviewed by other people. Wow. And the way we went about doing this was we found the shows that we wanted to be on and took a look at that show. And here was the trick. Somebody did this to me, and this is how I got the idea. I didn't come up with it originally. It's just when they did this to me to get interviewed on my show, I said, this is brilliant. I've got to do this, right? And it's all about going in and leading with the giving hand. So giving value first. So here's one thing you got to understand about podcasters. We all love ratings and reviews, good ratings and reviews, right? So what we would do is we'd find the podcast hosts and the podcast that we wanted to be on. We check out the podcast, listen to a couple of episodes, and leave a quality rating and review, right? That was the big thing. And then take a snapshot of the rating and review that we just left. And then we would approach the podcast host. So it'd be reaching out and saying something like this. Hey, Alan, absolutely love your show. It's great. I really enjoyed the episode that you did with Joe Schmo and found that the part where you guys were talking about XYZ really, really resonated with me. Keep up the good work. I loved it so much. I left you a 5-star rating and a review. Here's a picture of it. And oh, by the way, I have something that might be of interest to your audience. It's a little bit about whatever it is. If you're interested in that, if this could provide value for you and your audience, I'd love to be considered to be a guest on your show. Send that out. It's pretty much irresistible because it's the exact opposite of what most podcast guests do, which is they spam podcast hosts. You've seen this a ton, I'm sure, Alan. Hey, I'm so great. Here's all the wonderful things I've done. Here's how smart I am. Here's how rich I am. Here's why I should be on your show, right? It's me, 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 me. On the other hand, if you lead with the giving hand, it really makes a difference and has a high impact. Any thoughts on that, Alan?
Great suggestion there. Always being willing to give is always the best way to receive. And great suggestion there on actually how to go about that, because yes, absolutely. Ratings and reviews are what we all need and can never get enough of those.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Give Alan a really good 5-star rating and review. If you like this episode, go for it.
Yes.
Hey, and then here's the other thing I really recommend, especially for newer people that are just starting to get interviewed on podcasts, leverage the heck out of the experience. And here's what I mean. So as soon as you are confirmed that you're going to be interviewed on somebody's podcast, let the world know. Put this on your social media. If you're on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever your flavor of the day is, or all of them, just say, hey, so excited. I'm privileged to be invited to be a guest on Alan Lomax's show. Is going to be getting interviewed in a few weeks. Keep your eye out. I'll let you know when it happens. All right. So before you even get interviewed, you can start leveraging this. Oh, wow. Okay. Dave's getting interviewed. That's pretty cool. He must know something if somebody wants to interview him about something. Okay. And then the day that you're getting interviewed is probably not the day that show's going to be released, but you can still leverage that. So do the interview with the host. Make sure you get a screenshot of you and the host talking. Get a screenshot of you and the host talking. Most of these interviews are done on Zoom or Riverside or some sort of an online platform like that. That's usually video. So get the screenshot. And then after you've done the interview, say, hey, had a great time being interviewed by Alan on a show today. It'll be coming out in the next few weeks. Here's Alan and I. We had a really, really good conversation. I'll keep you updated when the show comes out. Okay. So bang, that's the day you got interviewed. And then the show drops, it gets released. Make a big deal about that. Hey, my interview with Alan just came out. I was really honored to be interviewed on his show. Here's the show. Here's the link. Please go check it out. And again, that's how you can leverage this, because it's not just about getting exposure to Alan's followers, which is great. It's actually more about showing the people who you already have a connection with that you are an authority. You are an expert. You are somebody that is being interviewed on podcasts. Does that make sense, Alan?
That makes total and complete sense. And it blows my mind at how few people do that. I mean, I give all of my guests the perfect opportunity to do just exactly what you were saying there. And I suspect that probably it's like 5% who actually follow through with that.
Yeah, and it really
that's
depends.
After they make an effort to get on my show. And it's like, why aren't you leveraging that? It just blows my mind. But,
yeah, well, that's the difference, right? And that's part of the reason I enjoy interviewing what I call everyday people investing in real estate, is because quite often if we're only interviewing the gurus and the experts and the authors, they've been on a gazillion other podcast shows. They're just really looking for the new exposure to a new audience. But if you're just getting started with this, the real leverage is using that podcast to emphasize your status, your expertise, the fact that you're an active real estate entrepreneur. Emphasize all of that and highlight it to your own audience, your friends, your family members, your work associates, people from church, people that you have a direct connection with, because be perfectly frank with you, Alan, when it comes to raising capital and getting started with it, those are going to be your first investors. You're not going to be bringing in complete strangers to invest with you in deals. It's going to be people who already know you and like you and trust you. And when you do these kind of things, it really kicks up that whole trust factor with your existing connections. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, more people need to do that. I mean, that is, if you're going to be on podcast shows, leverage them. Just why else spend your time?
Well, it is kind of an ego stroke. That's true. But you got to be, if you're just getting started with raising capital, you have to be smart. You have to be strategic. You have to realize there's a lot of competition out there, and you're probably not going to jump right in and start bringing on a ton of accredited investors who don't know you, right? So you're going to have to, everybody, all of the rock star capital raisers and syndicators and folks like that, they all started with their warm connections first. That's where they got started. That's where they got a little bit of a track record. That's where they got, some testimonials and some referrals. And that's how they were able to build up. Some did it a lot faster than others, but they all start with that circle of influence. Their friends, family, coworkers, business associates, people they have that direct connection with. And one of the best ways to prove that you know your stuff to these people, especially family members that might not quite get it why you're doing real estate, friends that remember you and your antics from university days or college days and can't take you seriously as a real estate entrepreneur. By doing these things, especially leveraging podcast interviews and YouTube interviews and whatever kind of interviews you can do, by leveraging that, that's really going to impress these people who are the most likely to be your first investors.
Excellent advice, Dave. And I just hate it, but we are out of time. What is your last words of wisdom?
Last words of wisdom are take advantage of what you've just learned here today and, raise your profile. And the more that you are seen, the more green you're going to be able to raise to grow your real estate investing business.
Thank you, Dave. It's been wonderful being with you today.
It's been a pleasure, Alan. Really appreciate it and look forward to having you on one of my shows as well.
Likewise. Enlightened investors, don't go yet. I have just a couple of quick requests. You know the drill. Like, share, and subscribe. But we also need your help to build our audience, so please go to your favorite podcast app and leave us a 5-star rating and review. I'll be most grateful. Until next time, prosper and live abundantly.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Estate Investing Abundance, brought to you by Steve Talker Capital, a company working for passionate professionals like you to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steve Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine. These endeavors attempt to enhance the human treatment of horses worldwide. Steve Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures, great and small, flourish abundantly. For resources to develop your financial independence, connect with us at stevetalker.com.